presentation. This session will focus on the German E-Rezept ePrescription workflow on FHIR, which will be presented by Hendrik Jablonski from gematik.
The ePrescription solution for Germany, which is a good example on the use of the FHIR standards and its workflows. But first, please let me introduce myself. My name is Hendrik Jablonski. I joined the gematik in 2016. The gematik is the authorized institution for interoperable design, standardization, and specification for e-health applications. And back in 2016, I started off with the definition of some patient administration tools and was soon part of the team that specified the electronic e-health record for Germany, which will start from the 1st of January in 2021, which is in about 6 weeks. In 2019, the gematik started a project that has to design, specify, build, and roll out the ePrescription solution for Germany. And that's why we're all here, because I was new to FHIR, and the German E-Rezept uses the FHIR standard, and I want to share some experiences with you on this community talk. Imagine a workflow where you have a voucher system. You get a piece of paper in order to receive your medication. You may hand over the piece of paper to a person of trust in order to pick up your medication in a pharmacy. But once you lose control, you lose the piece of paper, you lose control of the process. You may also are not longer able to get your medication in a pharmacy. The German e-health system is regulated by hundreds of contracts and policies. In this environment, how do you start digital? One option is you stick to the process you have. You create a proprietary data set. You electrify your paper prescription. You may encrypt it if you want, and use the patient as a walking memory stick to hand over a piece of data to a pharmacist of choice. But what is the smart option? You may want to improve the workflow. You want to add safety, patient awareness, and other advantages to the process. So you look for data and processes for existing standards, and this is how we found the FHIR standard. For me, it was a first hands-on the FHIR standard, and we started with a definition of a RESTful exchange of medication resources, like medication request and medication dispense. But when you take a look on the HL7 website, you find on level 4 medication record keeping and data exchange. So what we've done is we created a process on the workflow module that exchanges FHIR resources and added sanity checks and other quality checks and signature checks. And if you think of a patient that uses medication that is rarely available, you send him to one pharmacy and the medication is not available in this site. You send him to another pharmacy, and where he gets his medication, in the end, the question is, who is the pharmacist that truly and undeniable dispensed the medication? The workflow may help in this way. So what we've done is we created a generic workflow that is suitable for future use cases like the prescription of wheelchairs, narcotics, physical therapies, and others. Let me give you an overview on the ePrescription systems for Germany. On the left-hand side, you have the physicians or the dentists that create a prescription in the patient management system. They fill out a form and do not longer send it to a printer. They send it to an ePrescription backend. The ePrescription backend creates a workflow on the prescription and also checks the qualified signature on activation time of the workflow. The patient, as the owner of the workflow, is allowed to download all his ePrescription workflow data. He receives an access code, which is the authorization information that he can hand over to a person of trust or to the pharmacist in order to download the ePrescription. For the handover of the authorization information, the patient has two options. He may forward this information via his smartphone and data matrix code, or just prints out the information and the pharmacist will scan the printout. Let me give you an overview on the main FHIR resources. We use the task resource as the main workflow resource that takes control over the workflow and names the ownership of the workflow. In the first step, it's only the patient, but there may be others that control the workflow for future use cases. We have the medication dispense resource for added value information on dispensation time. We have the communication resource for interactions between pharmacists and patients in order to query the availability of medications. We have the location resource to have a directory of all pharmacies in Germany where the patient can go into a store or get in contact to the pharmacy. And we also use other resources like audit event and operation definitions for added patient interactions. So what did I learn personally from the ePrescription project? It was a deep dive into the standard, and my main tools were the FHIR project website, the HAPI reference system, and I always gave it a go with the command line tools to play with the resources and the already defined interfaces. With the division of labor in Germany, we are dependent from dependencies. We have the KBV that defines the ePrescription dataset itself. The KBV is the Association for the Resident Physicians, and we as gematik define all the resources on the workflow. So that's all I got for 10 minutes in this community talk. Your feedback is really appreciated, and we would like to get in contact with you. You can follow us on Twitter. For more information, please check out our FHIR website for the project of the ePrescription, and don't hesitate to write me an email in order to ask more questions. And now it's time for some Q&A of another 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Hendrik. We will now proceed to the Q&A. Please make sure you type your questions in the question box in the control panel of Hoover.
Yeah, Lloyd, thank you very much. Great show, and I feel like backstage on the Eurovision Song Contest. Yeah, I'm waiting for incoming questions. And for the moment, I want to add some information. We pre-recorded the session due to the pandemic situation, and fortunately, I'm healthy and could attend this this community talk. But I missed one point in the presentation. You may ask, where's all the patient data and the patient resources, personal resources of the organization, the practitioner, and the patient. They're not missing in the system. They are somehow hidden in the qualified signed data set we receive from the practitioner. And we do not evaluate these data apart from checking the patient identifier to name him as the owner of the task. So we do not store any patient resources, organization resources, and organization resources, yeah.
Okay, Hendrik, we have a question.
Yeah.
Does the patient get a digital copy of the prescription as well?
Yes, he does. There's one thing I need to point out. We have a qualified signed data set, and this allows anyone to receive medication or drugs from a pharmacy. And due to this situation, and when you copy an electric data set, you have two originals. You cannot see if it's a copy of an original data set. So we must leave the qualified signature out. and the patient gets a copy of the data with a server-side signature.
Okay, we got another question from Jason, and he asks, did you compare how you implemented e-prescription workflow with other countries? Wondering how this solution compares with others.
We examined other pilots. In Germany, we have different pilot projects for e-prescription systems solutions. And we also took a look on the Austrian e-prescription system, ELGA. In Germany, we have the Muster 16 process. This is the pink sheet of paper where you get your prescription from the doctor and carry it to the pharmacy. And every e-health system is different from country to country. So we had to make a definition of German process, but it's basically a generic workflow. And we had the talk of René Sprong about an hour ago, and he showed us, made a presentation on the medication workflow with the medication resources and the task resource. And this is basically the same what we've done.
Okay, we got another question. Is Smart on FHIR anywhere in this design for access control?
Well, not yet. We have an authorization code, like an access code, which is a random, not guessable base 64 value that is handed over to the patient, and the patient hands it to the pharmacy of trust or to a person of trust that needs to pick up the medication from the pharmacy. We have not yet an authorization server for the access. Well, not yet, but we will have in the future.
Okay, we have another question. When you have a paper and a digital version, how do you control that people are using the prescription twice?
This is where the workflow takes care of the process. You can only once get your medication dispensed. We create a receipt server side when the task is completed, and the pharmacy needs the receipt to get the money from the insurance company, and no pharmacy is allowed to access a task resource that is already completed and not owned by the pharmacy. Question answered?
Yeah, I think so.
Any more questions? I don't see any questions.
No, I don't see any questions.
No.
Okay, we got another question. Are all of these resources for the whole country stored in one central FHIR server?
Basically, yes. We have a centralized ePrescription server we call Fachdienst, E-Rezept Fachdienst. And we had a tender that is given to the IBM company yesterday, the last weekend. And IBM will program, implement, and host the system for the whole of Germany.
Okay, any other questions coming up? No. Okay, no questions yet. Oh yeah, we have a follow-up question. Does the prescription service also contain all the patient records, or are they in other systems?
The patient records are stored within the qualified signed dataset. This is the bundle defined and were defined by the KBV. This dataset is then qualified signed by the connector we have in any, how you call it, doctor's office. And this is a PKCS7 dataset, I guess. And the patient for this prescription dataset is stored within an enveloping style in this dataset. This dataset is uploaded to the server. The server checks the signature, but does not unwrap the data except as a copy for the patient. So the patient resources and practitioner resources, organization resources are not stored themselves on the server.
Okay, we have another question from Kevin, and he asks, Germany has a private and legally insured patients. Does this workflow work for both insurance models?
We start off with the legal, the gesetzlich Versicherte, we call them, GKV. This is where we start, and we have the private insurance system that will follow up very soon after the start.
Okay, we got no questions at the moment. Okay, no, we've got no questions at the moment. All right, Hendrik, it looks like we've covered all of the questions. Is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up the session?
No, it was a great talk, and I'm here for more questions on the Hoover app, the speakers gallery. Just leave a question or a message if you like. And for more information, as I said on the video, we have the ePrescription landing page, E-Rezept for Deutschland, and our Simplifier project. There you find the details about the resources we use and the profiles we defined for the ePrescription. Yeah, so no more questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, just let's see. Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I think we've covered everything. Thank you, Hendrik, and all of the attendees. We're happy that you were able to join us today, and we hope that you found the session useful and informative. We would like to know, we would like to know more about your impressions, so please let us know what you thought about the presentation and rate it directly in the Hoover app. Also, please note that all of the questions will remain in the Q&A box, and Hendrik will answer them via the Q&A feature in Hoover within the next couple of hours. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.